Let's go ahead and get started. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. And y'all sitting here pretty quiet at like 10 till, then get ready to start. Y'all got fired up again. Ecclesiastes. It's right after Proverbs. Y'all know what I'm saying? Ecclesiastes. Anybody know anything about Ecclesiastes? What you know, John?
Mostly it's written by Solomon.
Okay, written by Solomon. I like it. Jamie's going to sing a special for us tonight.
I'd rather say something about Ecclesiastes.
No. Think of something in the back. I'll let you say when you come in. Yeah, written by Solomon. I think it's written by Solomon. Personally, I think it's written by Solomon. If you Google that, you'll find a lot of weird stuff out there, but I think it's written by Solomon. Anything else? Is it upbeat? Is it a pretty upbeat book? It's not. One man said it's the only book of the Bible that seems to have been written on a Monday morning. That's what he said. So I'm going to try to give us a little different view, maybe. Most of this message, your outline is really small. I'm only covering 3 verses, but most of it's going to be outline. Introduction tonight. Okay, so most of it will be introduction. So everything is vanity. Is basically his key phrase. Okay, vanity, that's his key word. It's mentioned 38 times in this book. It's 12 chapters long, the book is. Writer Solomon. Most people think that after wandering away from God and falling into sin, that Solomon repented of his sinful ways, returned to the right and proper fear of God, and this is his memoir. This is what he wrote at the end of his life, basically about a culmination of his life. So he's writing this basically like a final testament. So Ecclesiastes, what does Ecclesiastes mean? Anybody know that word? Huh? It means preacher. That's exactly right. It means preacher. And it's from the word ecclesia. All right, and that is the Greek word for church. So what this is, he's called the preacher, and the ecclesia is not a church building, but a congregation, a gathering or assembly. And the actual word, and some that you'll Google, and you'll be like, I have no idea what this word is talking about. The Hebrew part is koheleth, and that means the guy who speaks in front of a congregation. So basically, the preacher. Okay, so I'll either call him that or Solomon. He'll be called one of those 2 things in here. And the key text is chapter 12, and there's 2, verses 1 and 13. And let me read those for you. It says, Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. So remember now thy Creator. And then verse number 13, he says, Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. So Ecclesiastes is cautioning us not to put our hope in earthly pleasures or worldly treasures, but it's teaching us to put our hope in God instead. So all of this dismal stuff that we're going to read about and study are all things that happen in a life without God. Right? A life without Christ, a life that's not lived for him. All these things are what happens. There's no satisfaction, there's no peace. And whatever you do without God, he is what gives our life, our time worth. Him. And that's the point that Solomon is trying to make. One man said Ecclesiastes is really about the meaninglessness of life without God. But because the writer never gives up his belief in God, his ultimate purpose is to show us how meaningful life can be when we see things from God's perspective. So his message is not that nothing matters, but that everything does. Right? He's going to say, this is all vanity. This is all vanity. He's not saying that nothing matters. He's saying that everything matters. Everything matters. So vain or vanity is used 38 times. The second one, and maybe pretty important, and we're going to do some word studies tonight, so I hope you don't mind, is under the sun. The phrase is used 29 times in this book, under the sun. Okay, and that's key. That's key to this study. All right, so why study Ecclesiastes? So we should study Ecclesiastes because it's honest about the troubles of life. Does anyone know who Herman Melville is? He wrote Moby Dick, so if you've ever heard of him, that's him. He called this book the truest of all books. It is maybe the most honest book that's in the Bible, in my opinion. It is extremely honest. But Ecclesiastes, it captures the uselessness and frustration of a fallen world. It's honest about the hardness of work, the injustice of government, the dissatisfaction of pleasure, foolish pleasure, and the mind-numbing monotony of everyday life. He talks about it all. All right, so we should also study Ecclesiastes to learn what will happen to us if we choose what the world tries to offer instead of what God has to give. So tell me about Solomon. Was he a poor guy or a rich guy? He was a rich guy. Did he have one wife or did he have 100 or? Huh? Double that. Yes, sir. He had 1,000. Right? 700 wives and 300 concubines. Okay? That tells me right there that he is not the most wise man in all the world right there. He had about 999 of way too many. All right, so Solomon had more money. He enjoyed more pleasure. He possessed more human wisdom than anyone else in the world, yet everything still ended in frustration. Everything. We think, well, if I get this paycheck or this right here, that's going to solve these issues for me. I'll be satisfied with this next job. I'll be satisfied with this next child or whatever it is. He had it all. He tried it all, and it still didn't satisfy him. It still frustrated him. It took him away from God. And the same thing will happen to us if we live for ourselves rather than for God. So Solomon seems to be telling us, why make your own mistakes when you can learn from an expert like me instead? The third reason we should study Ecclesiastes is because it asks the biggest and hardest questions that people still have today. What is the meaning of life? Why am I so unhappy? Does God really care? Why is there so much suffering and injustice in the world? Is life really worth living? These are the kinds of intellectual and practical questions that the writer wants us to ask. So another reason, study Ecclesiastes. It will help us worship the one true God. For all of its sad disappointments and skeptical doubts, this book teaches many great truths about God. It presents God as the mighty creator, the sovereign Lord, the all-powerful ruler of the universe. So studying and reading Ecclesiastes will help us grow in the knowledge of God. This book teaches us how to live for God and not just ourselves. It gives us some basic principles we need to build a God-centered worldview, like the goodness of creation or our own absolute dependence on the Creator. So then, on the basis of these principles, Ecclesiastes gives many specific instructions. Money, power, anything you can think of. It also has many things to say about death, which may be the most practical issue of all, because we're all headed that way. All right, so number one, all is vanity. All is vanity. Let's read 1 through 3. It says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. That narrows it down for me, Solomon. Okay. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? So that's the first mention, vanity. First mention of under the sun. Those are both really key to understanding this book. So all is vanity. So Solomon takes the whole sum of human existence and declares that it is utterly meaningless. It's going to be more upbeat, okay, other than that. All meaningless. Then he takes the next 12 chapters to prove his point in detail. After which he returns to the very same statement, verse number 8, chapter 12. He says, vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. So vanity, what does that word mean? If everything's vanity, what does that mean? Useless, I like it. Meaningless, I like it. Unprofitable, I like it. You're all right so far. Emptiness, yes ma'am, I like it. Taken literally, the Hebrew word refers to a breath or vapor, like a puff of smoke rising from a fire or a cloud cloud of steam that comes from hot breath, maybe on a cold morning. And he's saying life is like that. It's insubstantial. That when we try to get our hands on it, it slips right through our fingers. Talks about the shortness of life. It disappears as suddenly as it comes. Now you see it, now you don't. Here we are today, gone tomorrow. The Bible often compares our life on earth to vapor. Psalm says we are mere breath. It says our days will vanish like a breath. James talks about it as well. He says life is but a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. So when the preacher or Solomon says vanity of vanities, he's partly making a comment on the shortness of life. Breathe in, now breathe out, because life will pass just that quickly. So when we look at the way that this word is used throughout this book, it takes on a broader significance. The word comes to express the absurdity or uselessness of life in a fallen world. Life is empty apart from God. Again, like I said at the beginning, without God, there is no meaning to life. There is none. Zero meaning to life without God. And that's the point he's making. And he's going to say it all through this book. And he says all. So we see the scope of the claim that he makes. He says all is vanity. There is not one single aspect of human existence that is not frustrated by uselessness. It is all empty, pointless, futile, and absurd, is what he's saying. Every bit of it, all of it. Again, in reference, without God. To prove this point, Solomon takes everything that people ordinarily use to give meaning to or find satisfaction in life and then show how empty it really is. He's going to take everything. He's going to take your job. He's going to take your family. He's going to take everything that he can. Everything that he did himself and say, there's nothing in this. This by itself will not satisfy. This on its own will not give you peace. Only God can do that. That's the point he's making. He's speaking from experience because he tried it all. Money, pleasure, knowledge, power. Some people try to find meaning in what they can know and learn about life. But when Solomon tried to pursue knowledge, he discovered that in much wisdom is much vexation. And he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. That's verse 18 of chapter 1. Some people think that they will be satisfied with all the pleasures that money can buy. Solomon was rich enough to conduct a thorough experiment with this as well. But in the end, he learned that all was vanity and a striving after wind, and there is nothing to be gained under the sun. That's chapter 2, verse number 11. He immersed himself in his work, trying to do something significant with his life, or make a name for himself, but this also proved to be a vexation to his soul. He had nothing to show for all his labor. Sooner or later, we all have the same experience. We try to find the meaning of life, but we come up empty. We indulge in certain pleasures only to end up more dissatisfied than ever. Or we're unhappy because we feel that we will never do anything important or be anybody special. Then there's the biggest vanity of all, the emptiest thing of all is death. In all of its dreadful finality, death is the vanity of all vanities. So while it's true that Solomon takes a sober view of life, never flinching from any of its complexities and confusions, it's equally true that he has a solid hope in the goodness of God as well, as lasting joy in the beauty of his many gifts. This is exactly why he has shown us the uselessness of everything earthly. It is so we will put our hope in the everlasting God. So number 2, what does a man gain? He asks the question in verse number 3. He says, what profit hath a man of all his labor, which he taketh under the sun? So he states the theme of this book and maybe his motto for life, all is vanity. And then in verse 3, he begins to make his case for the emptiness of our existence by asking, what does a man gain by all the toil, all the work in which he toils under the sun? The same question will come up again in chapter 3. He says, what gain has the worker from his toil? This gain. What does gain mean? Or what it says, verse number 3, profit. What does profit mean?
Benefit.
Benefit? All right. Let's talk about it in a business aspect. What is the profit?
left after all the expenses have been paid.
Thanks, Tom. That's exactly what it is. 100%. That's what that word means. That's what that word means here. What profit is it for all the work that you're doing? Where is the benefit? Where is the sum, the good that's left over after all your bills are paid? What is that in your life? That's the question he's asking. It appears nearly a dozen times in this book. Commercial term, context of business. It refers to a surplus, something left over after all the expenses have been paid. This is the goal toward anyone in business, which anyone in business is working. The goal is to turn a profit as the reward for one's labor. Solomon, probably a bottom line thinker, was looking to get a good return. He was willing to work hard. But first he wanted to know the cash value. So he asked a question that people have about every job. Is it worth it? Am I really accomplishing anything? What will I have to show for all my work, for all my labor? People usually assume that if they work a little harder, they'll get a little something extra, more than they would have otherwise. But Solomon has started to doubt whether this was really true in life. So he asked us to consider what we will have to show for ourselves when life on earth is finished. You've worked your hands to the bone, you've done this and you've done that, but you haven't done anything for the Lord. What are you going to have to show for yourself when this vapor of a life is all over? That's what he's asking. As far as he could tell, no matter how hard people worked, they never really gained anything. The word he uses for labor here, for labor, is the toil. It's simply an ordinary Hebrew word for work. Sometimes it has a negative connotation, as seems to be the case here. People work hard, laboring for some kind of profit, but what do they really get for all their effort? Precious little, if anything at all. And one thing for sure, you may get profit here, but it ain't going to satisfy. You got to keep doing it over and over and over and over again. Then he talks about under the sun, which we're going to talk about because to me it's key to understanding this whole book, under the sun. So I think Solomon Kent set his overall purpose by using this phrase almost 30 times, under the sun, as he describes the absurdity and uselessness of work and wisdom and pleasure and everything else. He repeatedly says that this is what things are like under the sun. In other words, this is what life is like when we view it merely from a human perspective. When we limit our gaze to this world without ever lifting our eyes to see the beauty and glory of God, if that is all we see, then life will leave us empty and unhappy. But when we look to God with reverence and with awe, we are able to see the meaning of life and the beauty of His pleasures and the eternal significance of everything we do, including the little things of everyday life. Only then can we discover why everything matters. So, application number 1, above the sun perspective. Can anybody think of a verse that tells us to have a above the sun perspective? Look at you. Are you a pastor's wife? Have you been in church before? Exactly. Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. Let's read that together. And this is the point I think that Solomon is trying to get people to see. It says, if ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Set your affections on things above, not on things on the earth. That is an above the sun perspective. Things are bad, yeah, if you look at them. But if you look at God, things get a whole lot better. That's what He's trying to get us to do. Right? Because if we look at circumstances and things that are going on in life and whatever it may be, there's no satisfaction in them. There's fear in these things. There's all kinds of stuff that we shouldn't feel that we do feel because we're looking earthly. We're not looking heavenly. This phrase occurs in verse number 3, again in verse number 9, and many other places. It's one of the keys to understanding the book, and it partly expresses the extent of our problem. Where do we experience life's uselessness and frustration? Everywhere in the world, wherever the sun shines. Yet this phrase also leaves open the possibility of a different perspective. When he says under the sun, one man said that Solomon rules out all higher values and spiritual realities and employs only the resources and gifts that this world offers. So the use of this phrase is equivalent to drawing a horizontal line between earthly and heavenly realities. To see things under the sun is to look at them from ground level. It is to take an earthly point of view, leaving God out of it for the moment. That's what he doesn't want us to do. He's going to go through 12 chapters saying that if you keep this under the sun mentality and perspective, things are never going to turn out the way that you want them to. They will never be great. But if you look to God and you look above that and have that perspective on life, he said, that's where you'll find the satisfaction. Then number 2, we see true profit. True profit. I think the question of profit or gain is still a good question. We know this because Jesus put things almost exactly the same way. What will you gain, he asked. Except that Jesus turned the whole question around. He said, he did not ask what in the world we would gain for all our work. Instead, he asked what we would really gain if we had the whole world. What will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his own soul? The implication is that not even the entire world is enough to compensate for the loss of one eternal soul. But we're willing to sacrifice so much for $1, for a pat on the back, or whatever it may be, for stuff that doesn't matter. And he's saying the things that matter are not necessarily the things on this earth, but the things that are heavenly. That is true gain. That is true profit. So if we're looking to make a profit, we should not live for what this world seems to offer, but only for the everlasting gain that comes with trusting Jesus for the free gift of eternal life. All right, so there's your introduction in the first 3 verses. Hopefully we'll cover a few more verses than 3 next time. All right? So it's not going to be too dreary, right? Be a little upbeat maybe. Ecclesiastes. We'll find it together. Lord, we love you. We thank you for your grace and your mercy and your long suffering. Lord, I don't know why you love us, but I'm thankful that you do. And Lord, teach us to keep our eyes on you. It's so easy to get wrapped up in this world and the things that are going on, to seek our peace and satisfaction and our standing or whatever it is in the things of this world, and to waste our time with the things of this world and never spend the time that we need with you, or to look at things with a heavenly perspective. So help us, God, to see you high and lifted up, holy, in charge, never taken by surprise, a God that can be trusted. Help us to look to you, an above the sun perspective. And God, help us to live our life for something that truly matters, and that's you, your kingdom. May we raise our kids that way. May we go to work thinking about this heavenly profit and perspective, living it for your glory and for your honor, whatever it takes, God. To preach more about you, to share more about you, may we be willing to do it. We love you. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.